Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Geoff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And you're listening to episode 205. And this episode, we know it's not going to be perfect. There might be a few little errors here and there. It may not be entirely to your liking. You know, we appreciate all the 5-star reviews, but we know sometimes things fall a little short. But there's something beautiful and wonderful in that as well. Because there's certainly something beautiful and wonderful in games that fall short. The mediocre, the lower reviewed, but still worth it, still beloved, and still worthy of being part of the conversation.
Yeah, Geoff and I have a saying on the pod that Geoff coined, every game is somebody's favorite. It's become the tagline for side quests. Basically, people are going to want to talk lovingly about a game that maybe other folks didn't like, isn't well made, as much as you can say something is objectively not well made. Your Balan Wonderworlds, because I don't mind beating up on that game. That game's objectively terrible and controls horribly, but could still be someone's favorite game. To that end, I've had a big beef with people saying that 6 out of 10 and 7 out of 10 games with the rating system being flawed, put to the side, you know, that those games are bad games. And I can't help but disagree. Look, as someone who's played a lot of incredible games, the Citizen Sleepers of the world that feel like 10 out of 10s, that feel flawless, a game doesn't have to be flawless to be entertaining, enjoyable, or quote unquote good. And I think there's a lot to be said about how much we hang up on a game being perfect, best in class. Like, no one can deny how incredible Blueprints is. But if I had to rate that game, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Because for my experience, maybe even lower, the gameplay was fine. It looks gorgeous. The mechanics are interesting. It's well made. But there's no such thing as an objective review, and that game didn't hit for me. And I have to go back and try it more. But I think mediocre has such a negative bent on it. This idea of the average game, the only okay game, gets a bad rap when there is plenty of love to find in those games, because what may be an 8 out of 10 to one person could be a 10 out of 10 to you if it's exactly what you're looking for, even if it is full of flaws.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of what it comes down to is context. We read reviews that have the idea of, oh, this game is amazing. Well, what do you like? What do you do? As well as going back and looking at games and what is the point of this? I mean, honestly, to the example of Blueprints. Blueprints is, I think, a very well-designed game. Plays well. I love the discovery and exploration of it all. It also, for me, when I started playing it, I thought of all of the games that came before it that allowed for exploration, that were point-and-click games, visual novels, mystery games, puzzle games. Elements of all of those are part of Blueprints. Almost feeling like the promises of so many of those games were fulfilled or are closer to being realized in something like Blueprints or several other games of its ilk that have come out in the past few years. On its own, yes, I think it's a good game. I think it's a great game. But also compared to what I carry with me as my history of gaming into Blueprints, it's a sigh of relief. It is joy. It is, oh my God, finally. I'm somebody who played the Discworld game on PS1. Look, Eric Idle does an amazing job as Rincewind, and a lot of the voice cast is spectacular. The writing is stellar. It's a damned good Discworld piece. The load times for every action you take, especially if you've misclicked on something in a genre where you're just clicking stuff on stuff and you have to listen to the PlayStation struggle and then hear a goofy line. And if it's finding out that you've exhausted your exploration options to hear the bit again, well, that's just disappointing. But I still love that game and have still played through it because there are other aspects and other pieces that are worth it. And that is, to your point, Matt, the subjective quality. We bring our history, we bring who we are, we bring our circumstances. We don't have it as much nowadays, I don't think. But certainly when there were fewer games and when you had to buy them physically, that notion of, well, I'm not getting another game until my next birthday, so I'm going to love this game, is a big piece of things. And I would imagine nowadays there is still a little bit of love the game you have, not get the game you love.
Yeah, I mean, I think also you, I, and a lot of our peers come from a very different quote-unquote sicko perspective than the average gamer. I would say even the enthusiast gamers who listen to our podcast are probably more in our camp than the person who buys 3 games a year. If you are a listener who only buys a couple games a year, and we influence that decision anyway, well, thank you. But like,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear your take. It's funny you mentioned retro gaming because I think that's the biggest poster child for this. Games that we loved as a kid because it's what we had versus games that were mechanically tight and perfect when we were kids. And there's a difference. I recently played through the Gex series. I unfortunately didn't finish the third one because, well, it was more of the second one, and the second one was already incredible. And so I think I was tired of it by the third one. Also, the plot in the third one is just like, okay, sure. I love you, Dana Gould. We didn't need more. You did plenty. That said, playing through Gex 2, like, it's exactly what I wanted. It was a 3D platformer, collectathon. The stages were fun. You didn't have to collect everything to finish it, but you could collect everything if you wanted to. Most of the remotes were easy to find or get, and then there were some challenging ones that were harder to get. I think it's like the perfect platformer of that time that I missed, that I absolutely love. However, it is not the best of its kind when something like Banjo-Kazooie exists, right? But they're different games, and it depends on what you're looking for. I didn't want a Banjo-Kazooie experience with Gex, Enter the Gecko. I wanted a Gex experience. I didn't want a million things to collect. I wanted a few things to collect. And even as we go further back, there are games like, say, the Chippendales Rescue Rangers game for Nintendo is a good game.
It's a good game.
Is it a great game? I would argue no. There are some mechanical cheapness in it. There are some things that maybe don't hit. But then you take another platformer like Super Mario World, that is a flawless masterpiece. Like, as far as how tightly it controls. But again, that's my subjective opinion of it.
Right.
I know plenty of people who came to Super Mario World or Super Mario Brothers 3 late and hate it. Listening to someone talk about how much they hate the sun levels in Mario 3 with no context, no previous love, nostalgia, or experience, and how much they hated them and how much they suck, they are absolutely right.
They're correct.
They're correct. Do they bother me that much? Absolutely not, because the nostalgia kind of coats that a bit. That's where we encounter a lot of this in-between mushy area is in retro games, especially because if you're coming to it with no nostalgia, like there is a world which I hated Gex 1 and 2, and I did play the remasters in the collection, which I know they improved the controls a bit. They added twin stick controls for the 3D games, and so that definitely made my experience smoother. Still, the base mechanics have to work, the timing, all of that. They didn't tweak a ton of that. Coming back to old games, I think I'm also more open-minded to it because I grew up with these kinds of games where someone who maybe missed that early gen would feel differently, even if they like games based on them now.
And that is that kind of timeline of it all. To the nostalgia versus no nostalgia, I've gone on record several times about my opinions about Donkey Kong 64.
Yes.
A game that Sarah loves. The controls frustrate the hell out of me. The need to switch becomes so tiresome and cumbersome. And this is the thing, honestly, to what I think of when I think of mediocre games. Donkey Kong 64 is not without style. It is not without fun. It is not without cool shit.
Yeah.
But there are factors about it that make it untenable for me. Something like Super Mario World or games like that where it almost comes down to there is no such thing as a true perfect game or 10 out of 10 game objectively devoid of context. And I've talked about this before. Like, for me, a 10 out of 10 game is a game that does what it sets out to do and does it well.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be for everybody, but yeah, Super Mario World has great controls and physics to the point where all of those mods exist for it because it is a fun toy box to play with. The graphics are bright, clear, and easily read. The music is infectious, and the challenge has a nice, if you just want to get to the end, you can, and if you want to beat everything, have at it. Have fun. We've put some crazy stuff in there. So there is a kind of core of, yes, this is a good game. People can still hate it. And the same thing of, what does this game have? It's okay, but you can still love it. It's funny to look at eras, kind of what does a mediocre game in this era look like? Kind of to think about retro games where a lot of the more well-remembered and well-beloved mediocre games come out of big swings.
Yes.
We are now in 3D. What does that look like? Now we have voice acting. How does that work? Now we have HD graphics. Everyone's into this genre. Let me try this crazy idea. We can fit this much onto here. What happens with that? I mean, to the point about like voice acting or writing or things like that, PlayStation 1, N64 didn't really have a lot of space for voice acting, but PS1 had plenty. Tons of bad voice acting, tons of interesting dramatic choices, but they also fall under the same purview as why people enjoy bad movies. There is charm to it. I mean, look, is The Bouncer a good game? Let's not talk about that. Is it entertaining as hell? Yeah, it is.
You know, I wouldn't be me if I didn't bring up Sonic Adventure. Everyone can take a shot.
There you go.
A lot of people feel that that game plays badly and is a bad game. I replayed it very recently for the King of Games tournament where we covered it. I did play the original Dreamcast version emulated on my Steam Deck. Could the Steam Deck and emulation station have been doing a little bit to make it run a little better? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't have stabilized the horrid glitches that are in it, not to my knowledge,
No.
not without any assistance.
Right.
And so while other people are talking about falling through the geometry and screwing up and dying all the time, I blew through that game. Now, part of it is I've played through it more times than I can count and know it really well.
Mhm.
But like, I remember hating every time I've ever played that game, the catfishing stages. This time, I blew through all of them, even the boss battle one at the end.
Nice.
Now, it could be just because I got better at games, which is probably not true given my history, especially with some of the games I've played recently.
But compared to how you played when this game first came out, absolutely.
For sure. But that said, this is a game that everyone, I think, would consider the poster child for mediocre.
Mhm.
But I love the cheesy voice acting. I love how it looks. The design is gorgeous for the time.
Yeah.
I like the character designs. I ended up, and I said this before, I replayed that and Sonic Adventure 2 back to back. I like the kind of rounder, more sprite-like versions of Sonic Adventure more than the more humanoid-looking versions in Sonic Adventure 2. That's my personal preference. It looked more cartoony in Sonic Adventure. All that to say, it's one of my favorite games of all time because I just really love it for what it is. But people who came to it for the first time recently, or people who played it then and hated it and still hate it now, I can see why that is too. It's why our rating system is flawed, but I think also it's something to remember about video games, and it's the namesake of this podcast. Fun is in quotes for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever fun means to you. And I think the biggest thing about the 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 games is that they are very much a game that could be fun for you. And you have to incorporate what the player who's reviewing it is telling you about it if you were looking at those ratings. The most famous case for me recently, and we've talked about it on the show before, I mentioned it in our year in review, I think last year or 2 years ago, Star Wars Outlaws, a game that was imperfect. At a base level, the stealth didn't work. Combat was fine. It was your typical third-person shooter fare. But the story was great. The voice acting was great. I really loved the characters. I loved the open world. I liked exploring it on a speeder bike. It takes a lot for me to say that since I don't enjoy a ton of open worlds these days.
Right.
But like, I really enjoyed it. And yes, the reviews were accurate. I think a 7 out of 10 speaks to it perfectly. But people looked at them and went, oh, another bad game. And I went, but it's not. You have to play it. Do you like third-person shooters? Do you like great Star Wars stories? Then this game might be for you. And they ended up patching the stealth. They made it easier. It didn't get better per se, but they made it easier. You wouldn't get discovered as easily. You could sneak more easily. They changed the pathing for some of the AI. I mean, a game I played very recently that you and I talked about off air a little bit, but Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, subtitle after subtitle, was a mediocre game. Now, a mediocre Metroid game for me is still better than most mediocre games because I love Metroid games.
I mean, the very first Metroid game is a mediocre game.
Correct. I will stand on that hill and fight alongside you. That said, I had a great time playing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. God, it's never going to be easy to say that name. I always have to think, have I said all of the name every time I say it?
I usually tighten it up when we get kind of slow about things. I'm leaving that one in because that is accurate to the experience.
Yes. Something people have to remember is I don't love the Metroid Prime series. I like it. I played the first Prime game when the remaster came out on Switch, and it was wonderful. I've not played 2 or 3. I jumped into 4 after watching some recaps. I like to quote the incredible Kyle Hilliard, who's done side quests for us, play the new thing. I don't care. Who cares? Play the new thing. I think he played The Man Who Erased His Name before he played any other Yakuza game. Like, that broke my brain. Like, it's an interquel, but he loved it. I'm getting off track. But the thing with Prime, I don't even love that series, but I enjoyed this game. Now, did the open world suck? Yes. Did gathering all the green crystals suck? Yes. But the design of traveling between a world to dungeons that were more linear, but that you could still explore, that resembles my favorite Metroid game of all time, Fusion. I love smaller explorable areas because I feel like it's easier for me to explore. And this game gave me to that. Now, did I have to backtrack a lot without fast travel? Did I have to drive across a giant... Like, the motorcycle was awesome, but it was awesome in spite of everything else. It's just a mediocre game from toe to tip. And again, this was originally a Bandai Namco game. Then it went back to Retro Studios. Who knows why it existed this way?
Right.
Reviewing that game, I would give it a low rating. But talking about my game, I'd be really excited about it because it was still fun to play. Now, would I rather recommend basically any other Metroid game over it, with the exception of maybe a couple? Yes. But that doesn't stop me from having a good time. And I think that's the thing that people get hung up on with mediocre games is if they're mediocre, they're not fun. And that's just not true. It's not transitive that way. Fun games are fun in spite of the mediocrity.
Yeah.
Like there are things to latch onto. And I think that's at the core of what can make some games so divisive. You can't tell anybody else what they'll have fun playing. I could tell you what I think you'll have fun playing because I've known you for 10 years.
Yep.
God,
Yep.
That's scary to say out loud.
Do the math, buddy. Do the math.
Look, I'm a driving gay, not a math gay. I've said that 1,000 times.
You're here.
But like, I can recommend what might be fun to you, but you may still play it and go, ugh, this is awful.
Right.
You cannot really know what someone else will like. We get as close within that range as we can, but ultimately a person's personal experience is just that.
Also, what do I want right now? What am I feeling right now? Have the Paper Mario games over the years gotten more basic? The fact that they can only really have toads as NPCs now is a bit of a letdown. Certain mechanics have played out one way or another, but when a new Paper Mario comes out, my household gets it. And Sarah has a great time with it. I enjoy them as well, but I'm not going to lie to you about who gets first dibs on those. And anytime those mechanics come up, that style comes up, it's a slam dunk for Sarah, and I enjoy them as well. And it is knowing what is good versus what is enjoyed, and something you said a little earlier that I do want to touch on again, that idea of the 6 out of 10s, the 7 out of 10s. I don't remember which publication it was. I really wish I did. In their description of the ratings, I think it was like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Part of the description was fans of the genre will still enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's some of it too. What are the games that will take you out of your preconceived notions versus games that like, do you love this shit? Play this shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. There are more and more games all the time. Having a little bit of a like, fans of this genre will enjoy it feels like an obvious statement, but you know what? It's good to have because also there are those times where no one's going to enjoy this. The controls are stiff or whatever the case may be. Another Sarah story that I'm bringing here and that I think I've talked about before was Sarah's a huge fan of pinball. And we got a copy of Mario Pinball Land for the GBA at a video game con years and years ago. And it was funny where Sarah had never seen it before, looked up the review for it, and I think the IGN review was like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. And Sarah read the review. She didn't just go by the number. She read the review and went, we're getting this game. This guy just sucks at pinball. She was right. And we really enjoy the game. People don't watch bad movies because they want to feel bad necessarily. It's because they love some aspect of the production. They are following a certain creator. They are just enjoying the communal feeling of everyone's watching this really crappy horror movie together, laughing about the writing choices, pointing out the seams in the monster suit, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes falling through the geometry in the game is part of the fun, but it's not one that you would put on the cover of a magazine. But that doesn't make it any less fun.
Absolutely. Look, I have a movie equivalent for this. I am the biggest advocate for the Venom movies. They are the biggest, dumbest, best movies I've ever watched. From moment one, Tom Hardy kills it as Eddie Brock and as Venom. I love all three of those terrible, ridiculous movies. Are they the highest quality of cinema? Absolutely not. Are they some of my favorite movies anyway? You bet your ass. It's about finding the joy in the thing that you have and where that takes you, right? I try and go into any game experience open-minded. The King of Games tournament, which I've been a part of, and you may see Geoff very soon on.
Yeah.
Coming soon, which is exciting. There are plenty of those games that I've never played before, I have no preconceived notion of, and then I play them and I'm like, oh, this is really great. Oh, this was reviewed badly? Interesting.
Right.
Look, I'm having that experience right now with Ghouls and Goblins. God, the naming conventions for that.
Ghouls and Ghosts.
Ghouls and Ghosts.
Ghosts and Goblins is the first one, then it's Ghouls and Ghosts.
Okay. Ghouls and Ghosts. I'm playing it emulated on the NSO. And boy, does that game suck. It's hard. The enemy placement is cheap. You die too easily. The challenge is ramped up to 10. But I have save states and rewind. I'm almost at the end of the game. Now, am I getting there by the grit of my teeth and really probably still not going to finish it? Yes. But am I having fun? Yeah, kinda. It's a slog and it's a pain in the ass. But is it fun to challenge myself and see, with the miracle of rewind, can I get past this boss? Can I figure out the strategy without having to do the whole stage over? But those games were highly lauded at the time for the graphics and other things. So,
Yeah.
and it was an arcade quarter muncher. So, like, those contexts changed things too. I don't know. I would consider Ghouls and Ghosts a mediocre game. That might be blasphemous, but to me, it feels like the epitome of it, right? Because I feel like the challenge is unfair. There's no strategy to that in the same way there is a strategy in, say, a Dark Souls game where you have to learn the boss's patterns and they're repeatable. I think all of this is random. I'm open to being wrong if someone knows better, but I'm pretty sure old arcades like that are just random as shit and want to punish you for more money.
I mean, there is absolutely the overwhelm. They are learnable patterns, and there is learnable physics within it. And no, you're right. Ghouls and Ghosts on the Sega Genesis was a very well-regarded game. It is definitely in like the top 50 Sega Genesis games of all time. I picked 50 because I'm certain it's higher than that, but I'm just covering my ass here. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, that is also a genre we don't get as much anymore, that quarter muncher arcade style. That mindset has shifted to other things. It has evolved to the Dark Souls style of games. It has also evolved to whatever Bennett Foddy is making at the time.
Yes, that's true.
The frustration is the point. People weren't having a collective fever dream when they said that Ghouls and Ghosts is a great game for the Sega Genesis. But maybe it's one of those things where that's not my kind of genre or that kind of experience. I mean, I too am having a similar enough experience with Ghouls and Ghosts. I think I see it for what it is, and what it is not for me. But trying to enjoy it in its context, in its way. There are games that are absolutely I run to the right, I get my ass kicked. I love the Ninja Gaiden games. But
Yeah.
these are, when you come to them, what they are meant to be. In our Sega Saturn retrospective, I mentioned that I really wanted to check out Scud, the Disposable Assassin. I did not expect to get my wish so quickly. About a week or two after that episode released, I was at a vintage fair and picked it up for $20. I'm already getting my $20 just having this. I started playing it, and it is exactly as mid as you'd think. The cutscenes are over the top. The voice acting is weird. The animation is CD quality Earthworm Jim because it's a comic book. You want it to look cool and do cool things. And it's got a bit of that like almost claymation about the way the sprites drop and are. And it is challenging. But then I realized, oh, I can run through a lot of this stuff. There is just this fun mix of things I can't quite do and can do within it. The music's over the top. The presentation. I wanted to play this because I knew it was going to be a fascinatingly mediocre game. And it did not disappoint, and I am so happy to be playing it. There is that kind of joy, too, finding experiences that you don't necessarily get in other games. There are tons of wacky games that I really like to play that are, again, would I necessarily recommend them to everybody? No. Do I recommend them to certain people? Yes. Anyone who likes ska, I'm recommending Incredible Crisis because the entire soundtrack is Tokyo Ska Paradise Orchestra, and it's just a lot of weird minigames and things. If you like WarioWare, I would recommend the same. All of this comes back to the fact that, yeah, our rating systems and everything else are, I wouldn't call them a necessary evil, but they are sort of something akin to it because we do need these kinds of recommendations, and not everybody is part of whatever community that's like, hey, I found this game for you. So it's a good place to start, but it's a terrible place to end.
And also, it's funny, you brought up Bennett Foddy earlier. His newest game, along with the folks who made Ape Out, Baby Steps, is being lauded. And you look at that game, and it looks like the poster child for a 7 out of 10 game. Like, the graphics are weird, the geometry looks odd, the character design is bizarre. But I've been watching the folks over at Remap stream it, and I watched Dave Jackson stream a bit of it. It's like, what if we made a game that had the humor of Flight of the Conchords with ridiculous controls?
Yep.
For those who don't know, in Baby Steps, it's the truest form walking simulator because you are literally controlling the independent legs of Nate, a human man-child, who needs to explore this fantasy world. And it is just the biggest, dumbest, most ridiculous game I've ever seen. And I've not been hands-on with it. I've not played it. I'm interested in maybe trying it, but watching
Same.
other people play it and the humor that comes out of it. First of all, the cutscenes and the voice acting are incredible in it. Like the humor in this game, it's funny talking about comedy in video games, which is a subject we've never covered and we should at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a game where the comedy is so tied not just to the cutscenes, but the stupid stuff that we'll get up to as you fall off a mountain and Nate blubbers if you fall into the water and he's slowly drowning because he can't stand up fast enough. Like stupid shit like that. To someone who doesn't want to be frustrated, this game will probably be terrible. But to someone who loves comedy, wants to see ridiculous stuff, or just enjoys people watching people play other games, it's an incredible experience. And I am having a great time just watching people stream this game because of the natural comedy that comes out of it. But again, looking at it, like when it first showed up at a PlayStation Direct, I went, what the fuck is this thing? But now I've seen so much more of it, and I'm like, oh no, this is someone understanding what they want to make and making it. That's the core to what can help mediocre games transcend. Is this a good game? I don't even know that you can define it that way, right? And I think games like that are some of my favorites to look at. At the end of the day, it's what you get out of the game and what this whole broad discussion is about. The rating system is flawed. We know that. And yes, I know I use them in my write-ups. Actually, I have to give a lot of credit to the No Small Games girlies because they always rate games when guests come on a out of 10 of you, right? For you, your scale out of 10.
Right.
And I think ultimately, that's what everyone's review is. It's not the objective out of 10. It's that person's out of 10. What out of 10 means to me. And if you know me and you relate to me, then you'll understand my scale and you may also agree or disagree. And that's how I try to rate when I rate my games too, right? Like I'm giving you it's an 8 out of 10 to me. So if you like games that I like, maybe you'll like this game.
Or what about it you like or don't like? Is it one of those things where the art style is not to my liking? I find these controls frustrating. I don't like waiting like this. You know, in our conversation with Jack in our Gigasword episode, you brought up to him about sort of the corpse run concept.
Yes.
Which, frankly, I kind of love. I understand the frustration, and if it wasn't there, I wouldn't feel like there was something missing. But that could be a make or break for a lot of people as far as frustration or deliberation in a game. It's still not as simple as, do you like the same sort of games that Matt likes? Well, then you can absolutely trust the numerical review at the bottom of the review. You have to read the pieces and kind of go, oh, that's not a big deal to me, or oh, I've got that, or that sounds amazing. And to the point about Baby Steps, Bennett Foddy has released a number of games that really lean in on frustrating control or breaking the challenge down to just controlling the thing. What you're trying to do is not difficult. You know, QWOP is a running simulator. It is a walking simulator as well. You know, getting over it isn't a walking simulator because you can't see the character's legs, but it is still, you are fighting the controls of the game, and that is the fun of the game. Where there are so many others where I played Red Steel on the Wii for the first time a few weeks ago, and I am fighting the controls the entire time. I was laughing my head off at what a poor execution of a game this was, but if I paid full price for it as a launch game for the Wii, I'd be pissed. But the thing is, Bennett Foddy has released several games like this, and so part of it might be collaboration, part of it might be iteration, but Baby Steps is a more enjoyable, better, quote-unquote, game than his previous efforts. And there is something to defending mediocre games because they lead to more games.
Yeah.
And often better games. The amount of indie titles that are coming out nowadays that I enjoy, and I know a lot of other folks, including you, Matt, enjoy, that are looking back at older games and going, what if that mediocre game was better? Or the fact that there are games that we love and games that many other people love that had a poor first showing. Nier Automata is a wonderful game. I love that game. The first Nier is flawed. It is a flawed-ass game. It's why they did a re-release of it. But it's not without its fans, and it's not without its big choices and big swings, which are also fascinating, and garnered a further exploration and a partnership with Platinum Games to clean up a couple of things about gameplay with a lot of studio closures that are going on and a lot of things being let go, it feels harder and harder to let a game just be. We have to have metrics. We have to have sales. We have to have whatever it is. And that is trickling further and further down. That makes me worried. It makes me nervous, but the human spirit is indomitable. Our love for play is eternal. And people got game ideas and people got hubris. We are going to make more games, and they are going to be great. They are going to be terrible. And most of them are going to be flawed. And I hope we continue to make those, and I hope people get to iterate on them in their future projects as well. That's just as important.
I think it's easy for fans of any genre of anything to very immediately go, this is the poster child for success. Let's all do that. And we saw how that went for, live service games, which there are still plenty of good live service games. I'm not saying that there aren't, but that lightning doesn't always strike twice. It rarely does. I think what's really important here is that people get to make the games they want to make, and we're seeing the stumbling blocks of that. A game like Clair Obscura Expedition 33 comes out once in a lifetime for many reasons, not just because of how good it is, which it is, but because it's a debut title from a brand new studio, and it is not impossible, but it's definitely rare that a debut title from a studio is gangbusters in the way that this was. It can be popular, it can be successful. Absolutely, there are tons of studios that launch with successful games. But on the scale that this game did, it just doesn't happen. But because lifelong developers and new developers are working together to make a thing true to them. I love that game. It was my game of the year.
Yeah.
But it still, I hate parrying in that game. I dodge whenever I can. So it's still not perfect for me, but it's perfect for what I wanted in the sense that it's a game that I truly love and is now one of those generational RPGs that I will love forever. One of my other favorite RPGs of all time, Final Fantasy VII, the original. Going back to that with no context, I could imagine being very flawed for people, especially if you're used to traditional RPG systems, and then you get the materia and you're like, wait, what the hell is this? It's also a lot of text box tutorials, which is true of the time, whereas now tutorials are more integrated to gameplay. I think that at the end of the day, we knew ratings were arbitrary, but I think what we consider mediocre is also kind of arbitrary. But even when one person thinks something is mediocre, that doesn't mean you can't love it, and you shouldn't, right? People are going to naysay the things that you love. I have fun spats with the folks who don't like the games that I like and vice versa.
Right.
Look, there are people who didn't like Sea of Stars. Don't get it. Especially the story. They felt it was generic. I disagree completely. But I think that's the thing that's beautiful about games, especially at the scale that they are made and the amount of time you spend with them, is you can learn to love anything. Yes, does that lean to Stockholm Syndrome a little bit? Maybe, especially with the childhood games. But I think I love reviews, and I think they're important. I write them myself. We do them ourselves.
Yeah.
The thing that's important to me about the SideQuest series and this saying of every game is somebody's favorite is you get to see why someone else loves a game, and then you can decide if you love it. Absolutely, the reason I play Fortnite now is because Nathan Brandt's episode of SideQuest in the early days, they talked about how much they loved the communal experience of that game, and I went, all right, I'll try it.
Right.
And I loved it. Like, it's playing with action figures in a sandbox that happen to look like Goku and Superman and now the characters from The Office. Anyway, I think that there is an importance to that. And in the vein of mediocre games, there is an importance to going in with your heart open to hearing what someone else thinks about a game, even if you're already prejudging it, even if you didn't like it, because you might find something to love or at least understand why they loved it. You don't have to love every game that anyone else does, but you might find your way to loving things. Like when Geoff started to play the Yakuza series with the Like a Dragon games, right? You're getting to see a ridiculous thing that I love and why I love it because you're experiencing it for yourself. And I know I never shut up about those games, right? There's this transitive property of mediocre games where it should be less about what the hard numbers are and more about what the people who loved those games, what they loved about them, right?
Yeah.
If we're trying to be critical, it's a different thing. But I think there is a world in which the mediocre stuff can rise to the top if you want to engage in trying something that you've not tried before, or you're curious about a thing that someone else didn't like, but sounds like something you would like.
Yeah, it is the same across all kinds of media and all kinds of art. Games are a very commercial property, always have been. That creeps in more than, say, others, even things like music or movies or books. But they are still a matter of We love what we love, and there are things in everything that can connect to us and that can reach us and that allow for exploration, that allow for joy. And just the same as there is no perfect person. There's not even perfect people for people. There is efforts made to improve relationships, and there is efforts made to understand the art and the media around us. We revisit books that we loved when we were kids or that we didn't quite enjoy. We watch a film that we haven't seen in forever or that we've been hearing about for so long, and we finally sit down to watch it and we get to see all of the things that were told to us about it. Going to a museum or an art gallery, and sometimes it's as simple as I hate the colors in it. And sometimes it's as simple as I looked at it and I couldn't stop staring. Whether it's good, bad, indifferent, I am not equipped to talk about movements in visual art. I'm not. I know enough to speak intelligently amongst friends, not as a podcaster or as a critic of any kind, but I also love going to different exhibits. It's one of the reasons I love living in New York City, the opportunity to go to a lot of exhibits and pieces outside of my usual purview. The fact of the matter is, they're not putting mediocre stuff in the museum, and I'll still look at things and go, I could leave now. Same goes for films, books, TV shows, songs, and video games. We do say that every game is somebody's favorite, and a little hidden thing under all of that we're probably not going to introduce to people in the elevator pitch, but you've gotten this far. Review scores are bullshit.
Yeah. Even if you ask anybody who uses them, they'd say they're bullshit. Right? It is a coda on the thing that came before. If you are looking at the numbers and not reading the review attached to them, you are missing the point, which everyone I think listening here knows, but I think always bears repeating. Also, before we wrap up, I do want to bring up something that some people may find blasphemous, but I mean this as a compliment. I think the poster child for mediocre games, especially across generations, is Suda51, who I love.
Yes.
Who I love, mind you. But look at the first 2 No More Heroes games. I haven't played the third one. But those games are wall-to-wall flaws. The mini games, the money collecting, the driving around town on the slow-ass motorcycle, all of it kind of sucks. But the narrative slaps, the design is gorgeous. Shaking the beam saber is so stupid to recharge it. You think about Shadows of the Damned, which I've not played, but I've heard great things about. There are games that came out in that era that are so middling and yet are so many people's favorites because it was a time where graphics had never been better, game design had never been better, and we were trying things that we had no business trying. I think of Shadow Complex, the Metroidvania that nobody remembers on the Xbox Live Arcade. It's one of the most mediocre Metroidvanias I've ever played, but I loved that game. I thought it was great. Suda51 is an important figure in games because he just goes for it. He has a vision, he wants to experiment, and he does the thing. And it's why we get so many games from him. The new one he has coming, Romeo's Not Dead.
Yeah.
The trailer alone, I'm like, what the hell am I watching? But I want to play it because it looks ridiculous. And I think leaning into that in the same reason that people like Kojima. Look, I like to hate on him, and I will continue to, as it is my right. But the reason those games I think are as popular is not because they're perfect. From what I've heard, Death Stranding is an incredibly flawed video game.
Yes.
But people love it because it's taking giant swings, right? The later Metal Gear Solid entries, also flawed, not perfect, but take some huge swings in the game design, the storytelling, all of it. Look, without playing it, I know Metal Gear Solid 2 is the poster child for mediocre games in the sense that it is taking a fan's expectation and the creator is basically giving you a giant middle finger. But then if you like what he creates, because you're playing this character you didn't want to play, you will learn to love, enjoy that story because he also knows what he's doing. Kojima had an intent from the beginning. Whether you like Raiden or not, he knew what he was doing. And that kind of conviction can lead to a lot of mediocre games that people love, right? The two of them as creators are taking those big swings, and they won't always hit, but they will hit for fans of the genre or the series or those creators. And it's why I'm endeavoring to play more of Suda's games. I want to replay the No More Heroes games and play the third one. I think that creators like that are not, or I think we can throw Sam Lake up there as well, right? Alan Wake 1 is not a great game. It is a good game that I love. Lots of people think Control is not the best game ever. I would disagree. But it has its flaws, but it's still an incredible ride. The Max Payne games have their flaws, but like I think auteurs like that, the reason they get the cult fan base they get is because of this idea of like every game is somebody's favorite, but also these flawed games can have an artistic experience that you really dig, even if it doesn't hit on all cylinders. And I think those kinds of games are like the biggest tentpole for me of like the kinds of games that you can love that aren't quote unquote perfect, whatever that means.
And the funny thing is, a lot of those big swings then show up in other games. I would say No More Heroes in particular. Any one aspect about that game that you look at and go, who would want to deal with that? Some other game has done it and has been lauded for it.
Yep.
I mean, even down to the thing of like, why am I playing as this pathetic little guy? You're going to love playing as this pathetic little guy kind of thing. How many pathetic little wet assholes have we played in games that we absolutely adore?
It's true.
Travis Touchdown was not the first, but certainly not the last. We still talk about these games because they do something so cool. And you have to decide for yourself, to quote what somebody said about a Sonic the Hedgehog game. You got to make a statement. You got to look inside yourself and say, what am I willing to put up with today?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not fucking this, and other times it's the writing, the acting, the controls, the camera, the whatever the case may be, because I want to go through this. I want to play this. I love what this person does, or this is exactly the kind of experience I need right now. I think we get a little more of the retro game concept of, well, this is the only game we've got, because nowadays we have a digital storefront and because games can be sold at various price points, some too high, but some just right. And there's plenty of games that I love going back to now and I go, this game's fantastic, but it's a quick experience that they sold for full retail price at the time. But there's plenty of games now that, look, if you sell this to me for $10 or less, no arguments, no problems. And there is that commercial capitalist aspect to it as well. We are talking about this largely in context of the work itself. But I did want to briefly point out, yeah, what we paid for it does matter. As much as I am a physical collector here for preservation, I brought up this topic because I do want to say preserve mediocre games, preserve bad games. They're just as important. But because there is easier distribution and a more malleable pricing scale therein, it allows games that, if they had to be sold for $49.99 on a physical piece of media, would get forgotten, would get blasted, would be all sorts of things. They thrive in the context that they are. So many great games that come out now would have been joyous, forgettable failures in previous times with different constraints. And that's always important to remember and comes back to always about context.
I mean, I think GOG is the poster child for mediocre games in the sense that GOG gives you access to so many PC games that would be forgotten to time. The game that to me screams mediocre that's on GOG that I replayed recently that I still love is Blood Omen 2. Legacy of Kain Blood Omen 2 is a middle of the road, okay action game. I mean, the whole series is.
The whole series is actually pretty mediocre, but screw you, I love it.
And it's dripping with style, incredible voice acting early in the time. Like, those games very much were like style over substance, but in a good way, complementary, right?
Right.
And games like that would be lost to time. The Blood Rain games, which I love, those games are bad. Not mechanically, but just they don't have a lot going on. It's so funny when the movie came out and everyone's like, this is a bad movie. I went, well, I mean, look at the source material. But then, like, I still haven't played it, but they released a 2D version of Blood Rain, like a retro style one.
Yes, they did.
A few years back. And, like, I have them all wishlisted on my Switch. I really need to pick them up. But I loved those games in the PS2 era because they were just cheesy and ridiculous. And I love vampires, and the main character was hot. Like, let's be real. Kain also looks pretty hot in Blood Omen 2, I will also say. He's in all green and crusty yet.
I mean, Raziel does it for a lot of people. I'm not going to speak for anybody. I'm not going to blow up anyone's spot, my own, whatever. Yeah. Raziel does it for people, you know?
It's true.
Before and after getting his wings ripped off.
But like those games very much are also, and I think you're right, being able to preserve those games on things like GOG and Steam and them only costing like $15 now instead of the full 60 or 50 or whatever it was, gives people an opportunity to enter those games with lowered expectations and enjoy them in a way that would have never happened before. There's an indie game I saw a trailer for the other day. I don't remember the name of it. The Kickstarter hasn't started yet, but they are modeling their game after specifically Ocarina of Time. The look, the jank, all of it. And I love Ocarina of Time, but it has jank. Some stuff has not aged well.
Nope.
But they are marketing this new game, this brand new game, as a 3D action game. Plays like Zelda, looks like Zelda, but looks like that era. Think about Crow Country, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's designed to look like those old games and play like those old games. People love it. I loved Signalis, which was very much in the vein of those old PlayStation games.
All great games.
Without these mediocre games, we wouldn't have gotten these excellent games to follow. And every game is an opportunity to learn, whether you're a developer, a reviewer, a fan. It's to learn what you like. It's to learn how to make stuff. It's how to learn what you don't like. You know, I thought I didn't like horror games, and then I started playing some of them and realized, oh, I do like these. It's okay to be scared. I like some of these games. I hate some of these other games, right? Like, it's very easy to say what's the point of a bad game? What's the point of a mediocre game? But I think the point is, how can you learn what you like if you don't play what you don't like as well, right? It's like knowing what you like versus what you don't like as a person who eats food to live.
Right.
You can assume you like everything until you taste it, but you won't know what you truly love until you have something to compare it to. And I think that's important in the scope of video games as well.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, there was a lot of things I wouldn't eat because I didn't like texture.
I mean, there's still stuff like that I won't eat now because I don't like the texture.
Oh, exactly. And that just is what it is. And I have gone back to those as an adult, or the fact that I taught myself to cook for myself. And that gave me a lot of agency over the things that I eat. And that allowed me to try a lot of ingredients and meals and dishes that I didn't think I liked. I found a way to enjoy them, and now I order them elsewhere if I'm out. Just the same as with art. And it is important to have these failures, to know what you like or don't like, and to model something on the tank controls of Resident Evil or the lacking jump mechanics of Ocarina of Time, because of the fact that they happen as they happen. They are developed as they are developed, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of whatever idea. But when people do them now, they are deliberate. And deliberate choices and design is something so important and something so interesting. You know, not just we made it janky because we made it the best we could. We made it janky because we want to evoke something. And that is, I suppose, coming to the same conclusion from very different places. Context. Where are you coming from to get to this will inform all of the undertones, all of the pieces. It's the same on the surface, but what's underneath? Trying to evoke something like that with a deliberate piece, with a far bigger toy box, with physics engines that can actually handle these things, and you go, no, I'm going to make it suck, actually is a deliberate choice and can be so fun, can be so personal. And I applaud it.
I mean, we turn it to you guys. What is a mediocre game to you? What are some games that have been lauded as mediocre games that you love? What is your Sonic Adventure is what I'm really trying to say. Because video games and all art, broadly, but we're a video game podcast, is subjective. One person's trash is another person's treasure. Man, I'm reminded of the Skyrim lines. There's a vendor that you always run into in Skyrim is like, some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures. I remembered it. I heard that line a million times playing that game, and I was able to recall it. Tell us what games that you like that are deemed mediocre. What's a game that you deem mediocre that you really love? You know, what are these games that are the 7, 6, 7s, 8 out of 10s that you really think are phenomenal and people should play because they evoke something that other games don't?
What are the games that you know aren't great, but you wish more people would explore? When will we get somebody inspired by Air Guys, God Bless the Ring, and gives us a really fun beat-em-up fighting game dungeon crawler? Why aren't we making more Odamas? Why aren't we commanding armies through microphones that are built into all of the devices we have anyway so that we can have cool pinball games that we are yelling at? We yell at the games anyway. Let's just roll into it. Pun fully intended. Let us know. Reach out to us. There's so many great ways to get in touch. We are Fun and Games Pod across all social media that we are active upon, which as of this episode is Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of previous episodes, what you'd like us to talk about, who you'd like us to talk with in future episodes. If you've got favorite mediocre games, that's a great way to let us know, especially if it involves a whole diatribe about things, but also let us know on Blue Sky or Instagram so that other people can hear them too. a lot of what we were talking about here is the fact that recommendations make this all go round. And so that might be the opportunity for someone else to pick up on that great failure that you love. You can visit certainpov.com and find not only other fantastic Certain POV podcasts, but a permanent invite link to our Discord server where a lot of these conversations continue, and that's another great place to talk about those sorts of games. We have a gaming log channel where we talk about the games we beat, and those can sometimes turn into some fun tangents because people try all sorts of stuff. They don't have to be new, they don't have to be great. It's just the games we've played. If you like what we do, have the means or desire to support us, or just want a one-stop shop of all the things Matt and I are working on, we have a Patreon. Patreon.com/funandgamespod. There is a free tier, so you don't have to give anything to get that RSS feed or to take part in any of the surveys that we do about what our next console retrospective should be. But we are so grateful for everyone on our Patreon, and especially those on the high scoreboard. Today, the high scoreboard is Alex Lavelle, Case Aiken, Daniel Nyden, Sean Bowen, Film It Yourself, Patrick Edwards, Alejandro Alves, Curly Bright, and Chris Copleen. Thank you so much for your support. Please enter your initials. There is a very long loading time between each of the letters, but it's going to feel so good when you finish writing out those initials. It's so worth it. Please trust me, it's going to be great.
Another free way that you can support us, of course, is rating and reviewing this podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Also, tell a friend about the podcast. That's how podcasts grow. If you have a friend who loves two weirdos talking about things they love, there's no better place than here.
That's podcasting.
I mean, that's basically podcasting. Sometimes it's 3 weirdos or even 4 weirdos. But anyway, give us a rating and a review. It really helps. It only takes a couple minutes, and it's the best way to boost us within the algorithm so we can reach more folks to talk about more mediocre games.
If you've got a favorite mediocre game that you can't stop shouting from the heavens, if you think that this is all bunk and you only play 10 out of 10 games so that you could remain a pure gamer, or if this is your first episode of Fun and Games, thanks so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you. This is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Geoff Moonen.
I'm Matt at Stormageddon.
And happy gaming.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.